You know, he starts getting into the IRS now, which is another one of his big, huge, fraudulent deceptions. Wright says, a decision against the tax exemption, on the other hand, would destroy the entire enterprise because Hubbard had decided in 1973 that the church should not pay its back taxes. Where did that come from? I have no idea where that came from. It's nothing he ever checked with me, and yet I'm attributed as being the person intimately involved with the IRS thing. This is news to me. 20 years, Wright goes on, 20 years later, the church was $1 billion in arrears. Okay? False. I said we had a potential liability of $1 billion. He said we're $1 billion. That becomes, when Wright goes through the Wright process, you're $1 billion in arrears. No, not true. Using the IRS's logic, taking worst case scenario, I said there was potentially, and always use the word potential, $1 billion worth of liability. Okay, now it's a fact that it's a debt you owe. Not true. And this statement here might be one of the most bizarre in this entire book. He says right after that, because he invents this fact that Hubbard said don't pay the back taxes in 1973, and then he invents this fact that we're $1 billion in arrears, like there's been $1 billion worth of assessments, right? And then he says, with this invented statement, quote, the founder had placed Scientology's head on the executioner's block. It's just bizarre. He just literally invented two statements and invented a conclusion to go with his two invented statements. Okay, so now we're on page 226, and Larry Wright writes that the private investigators dug into the private lives of IRS officials. Okay? I told him in spades that did not happen. Never happened. Okay? And and he's the guy that took me at my word that I was involved in all this stuff, and he says it in here, but then he doesn't listen to what I tell him. I told him, yeah, maybe you feel safe saying that because some unattributed source said that in a New York Times article in 1997, but Larry, let me tell you, it's bullshit. It didn't happen. Never happened. I did tell him that we did have investigators attend seminars. And he says, he adds to that, and pose as IRS workers. I never said that. But they did attend seminars that the IRS workers attended to see, and then he adds, new invention. This is all one sentence. He adds, to see who had a drinking problem. Never happened. Larry Wright invented that fact. Never came from me because it never happened. Ready? Or might be cheating on a spouse. Now talk about projection. That just came out of left field. It just never happened. Stories based on these investigations were promoted by a phony news bureau the church established and also published in the church's Freedom magazine. Okay? So he doesn't agree with what the news bureau is saying. So it's not, it hasn't passed his alma mater, I guess, so it's phony, I guess. I don't know. I never told him any phony news bureau was set up. But he literally invented these facts that I never talked about. In fact, I even specifically told him, because accusations like that have been made in the past, never, at no time, was any IRS agent ever had his personal life investigated. Okay? Never did we have any concern or consideration about such personal things as cheating on spouses or having drinking problems. I did tell him we had investigators attend seminars that were being held on the taxpayer's dollar to find out how the taxpayer's money was being spent by the IRS, and that the result of that is that we found out that they were drinking on the U.S. taxpayers' dollars. We didn't mark the amounts for each guy and say, oh, he's got a drinking problem. It was the fact that they were using federal dollars to party that we published, okay? Then he says, Wright says, it seemed bizarre that a rather small organization could overmatch the U.S. government, but the harassment campaign, which he's just invented, and he's now calling it, so now it's clearly a harassment campaign because we're going into the personal lives of people, which never happened, was having an effect. Okay, listen to this one. In the same paragraph, Wright says, some government workers were getting anonymous phone calls in the middle of the night or finding that their pets had disappeared. Now, this guy twice now has accused Scientology of pet massacre and pet kidnapping, I guess, pet napping, stealing and killing dogs, both of which he was absolutely informed was utter bullshit.